1 million people to internment camps, and denying basic liberties through religious persecution, forced sterilization, and other human rights abuses. The Chinese government operates an extensive system of forced labor to produce key manufactured products, including textiles and electronics. Research has shown that the products of this forced labor system are deeply embedded in global supply chains. For example, this one region is responsible for over 85% of China's cotton production and around 20% of the global cotton supply. Nearly 2 years ago, Republicans and Democrats in Congress worked together and passed the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. This law recognized the reality that any imports produced in Xinjiang or by entities with close ties to forced labor in the region should be presumed to be made with forced labor and banned from entry until proven otherwise. The Department of Homeland Security enforces UFLPA through U.S. Customs and Border Protection's inspections of cargo entering the United States and through the Department's leadership of the Forced Labor Enforcement Task Force. The FLETF is responsible for publishing a list of entities that the U.S. government determines to be complicit in the CCP's system of forced labor in Xinjiang. The UFLPA is a significant bipartisan measure to counter the CCP's unjust and predatory exploitation of forced labor, but a law is only as good as its enforcement. 16 months after the UFLPA went into effect, the evidence shows that goods made with forced labor in Xinjiang continue to enter the U.S. homeland. Earlier this year, CBP conducted isotopic testing on clothing samples and found that 15% of the items tested positive for cotton from Xinjiang. Meanwhile, even though 2022 U.S. textile and apparel imports totaled $153.2 billion under UFLPA, CBP only detained less than 1,000 shipments worth $39 million from June 2022 to the present in the textile and apparel sector, and of those detentions, only $8 million worth were denied entry. The department needs to take a more proactive approach to enforcing the UFLPA. For starters, the department has been slow to expand the UFLPA entity list, adding only 7 entities to the list in the past year. Additionally, CBP should significantly expand its use of isotopic testing and other supply chain tracing technologies to identify cotton sourced from Xinjiang, as well as for other trade enforcement issues. Small, low-value de minimis shipments also pose a growing obstacle to CBP's enforcement capabilities, undermining CBP's ability to interdict not just goods made with Uyghur forced labor, but also narcotics, such as fentanyl. Shippers of de minimis goods face less CBP scrutiny and can ship directly to consumers. More than 60% of de minimis shipments come from China, including from direct-to-consumer clothing retailers that face scrutiny over their supply chain's risk of using forced labor in Xinjiang. De minimis shipments have doubled in the past 5 years alone, rising from $500 million in fiscal year 2019 to over $1 billion in the past year. And that appears on the chart that is erected behind me. Acting CBP Commissioner Troy Miller admitted just last month that the record volume of de minimis shipments makes, quote, screening these shipments and ferreting out contraband incredibly challenging, end quote. With such a flood of less scrutinized shipments arriving at U.S. ports of entry every day, the openings for banned imports and smuggled drugs to slip through CBP inspection are plentiful. This raises a question of the design of the relevant statute. The exploitation of Uyghur forced labor enriches Chinese industry at the expense of American manufacturers and workers. The domestic textile industry is critical for supplying equipment and clothing to our military and hospitals, as well as to our population. Rigorous enforcement of the UFLPA counters China's predatory trade practices and supports American manufacturers while keeping the CCP's forced labor system in Xinjiang from profiting off access to the U.S. market. This is an important issue that warrants congressional attention as we carry out our responsibility to ensure that the laws passed by Congress enjoy robust and effective enforcement by federal agencies. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to hearing your testimony. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ivey, for his opening statement.